The old man, Lee Strobel. Here, let me help you, Lee.
Lee Strobel.
Let me help you sit down here. There we go, Lee. You okay? Your hip is okay?
We're glad Lee made it. I mean, Lee, your home is actually close to Houston.
Yes, it's underwater at this point.
And it's underwater.
No, I'm kidding.
Not his home.
Mine isn't.
That's a joke. But
there
Houston.
are a lot of people suffering in Houston. They really need our prayers.
Trust me, it needs to be baptized.
Yeah, that's true.
You guys, this is going to be fun. And Lee, you flew in though from Denver.
Yes.
Because tell the crowd what you're doing in Denver.
Yeah, we just started something really cool. It's a new Center for Evangelism and Applied Apologetics at Colorado Christian University. So we're developing 131 courses, certificate level, undergraduate level, master's degree, PhD, to try to energize the church and individual Christians to share their faith in a natural way, but also to winsomely and confidently defend their faith in an increasingly skeptical culture. So we're really excited about that. If you're interested in taking a course, next fall we're going to be starting. You do it from home. It's all online. And just go to CCU, Colorado Christian University, ccu.edu/Strobel Center, and all the information's there. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, we're really excited about that. The gospel's going to go forward. People will say on the news, on the world news, that they'll make fun of Christians, and some Christians say that Christianity is not spreading. I think it's spreading more than ever.
People are more spiritually interested than we give them credit for.
They are.
We think they're not going to be interested. They're going to be hostile. The truth is, once you really get into a spiritual conversation, it's hard to stop them because they want to give their opinion. And one of the most fruitful evangelistic strategies that we've developed and we're going to be teaching at our courses is what we call spiritual discovery groups. It's where you have half a dozen non-believers and then a Christian couple or two Christians, and you go on a spiritual journey together. And you're not the Bible answer man or the Bible answer lady. You're there to facilitate a discussion, to ask more questions than give answers, to do more listening than talking. And you go on a journey, and 80% of non-believers that join these groups end up coming to faith.
That's amazing. Praise God.
So.
Now, I think the crowd would find this very interesting, that you two got to be friends in an unusual way. The reason why I think it's unusual is because you both have similar backgrounds. Mm-hmm. But how you actually got to be friends, Josh, we'll go to you. Lee's been talking. How about we ask you, how did you and Lee become friends, and how did you get to be close? Talk about how you met.
Through the kids, right?
Yeah, I would say it was through his son and my son.
Yeah.
My son talked so highly of Lee, and I said, Lee Strobel? But no, and
boys.
Vice versa and all.
Boys.
And it was through our kids. And then I think we have so much in common on apologetics, our background and all. He's handsome,
And you're handsome.
I don't know, it just happened, to tell you the truth. I couldn't give you all the details.
Yeah, I think if my son went to seminary and met your son, and I had never met you, but through their friendship, we ended up meeting and hanging out, and you're...
We're starting to like each other.
Yeah. He's wired 220, if you haven't noticed, and I'm wired 110, so I got to just hang on with him, and man. I said to somebody, Josh McDowell, he's like, I forgot your age, but it's older than me, and I said, Josh, he's got so much energy and enthusiasm at that age. And I was going to say, I hope I'm that enthusiastic at that age, but I realized I'm not that enthusiastic at this age. I hope I get that enthusiastic by your age.
Oh, boy, are we having fun. This is great. I learned from Sheila and Lee. I've interviewed all of these three guests individually, and I learned some things, like your sons went to the same seminary, and now both your sons they're teaching, right? They're professors.
Both are PhDs.
So they're both PhD professors, both their sons, and yours is where, Lee?
At Biola University, Talbot School of Theology.
And Josh, where's your son?
Biola University.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
How did I miss
yeah,
that?
Both
I don't know. That's amazing.
I don't know either. And then I learned that Sheila and Lee became Twitter friends.
Right.
And would you like to talk, Sheila? And you could tell me a little bit about what he would call you as you were Twitter.
he would call me my best friend that I've never met.
Yeah.
Just through Twitter, but I remember hearing, I huge admiration for Lee and the work that he has put in, the books he's written. But then I heard you were going through surgery. Yeah. And so I just, I was just one stranger in the crowd, but I just wanted to tweet and let him know that I was praying for him. And I think you read it maybe the day of your surgery.
Oh, what happened was, I had to have an MRI. I mean, I was on the edge of dying. And you said you were going to pray for me, and it meant so much to me. And they put earphones on me and slid me into the MRI and flipped to a random radio station because it's noisy in there. And so here I am in this tube, and what comes over the radio? Sheila Walsh singing a song. And it was like God was saying, I got you. Sheila's my good buddy. She's praying for you. You're going to be fine. Don't worry about it.
Isn't that
so
amazing?
Awesome. Yeah.
That's the God we serve. He's so detailed and personal.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that's so beautiful to me, is that God is so deeply personal. And it's not just for people on a platform, that's how he is with you. That when you're going through a rough time, that he's going to let you know, I've got you. I see you.
Sheila, this question's for you. You were pregnant, and I want to talk a little bit about your pregnancy. You were how old when you got pregnant? And then talk a little bit about what the diagnosis was or whatever the doctor told you, and then tell that story.
Barry and I didn't meet till I was 37. So when I was pregnant, I was 39 years old. And we tried to get pregnant and thought maybe it wasn't going to happen. And in fact, I'd gone to my doctor to just kind of get a checkup. And she was lovely, but her nurse said to me, how old are you? And I said, 39. And she said, well, all your eggs are hard-boiled by now, which I thought was just lovely. Yeah. Such a ministry of encouragement she has. But then we did get pregnant, and so when we went for the ultrasound, I was absolutely sure it was a girl. We'd already picked out the name Alexandra. And she said, no, it's a boy. And I was thrilled, because I'm kind of a tomboy. But a few weeks later, she called and she said, there's something wrong with your pregnancy. Some of the markers are really off. And she wanted to do an amniocentesis because I was 40. And then Barry and I came back in, and she said a phrase I'd never heard before. She said, your son is incompatible with life. And she said, I'm recommending that you terminate this pregnancy tomorrow. And I said, absolutely not. Because what she didn't know was 5 years before that, I was speaking at a closed conference for missionaries in countries where they would lose their life. And after the conference, this woman in Turkey wrote me a letter and said, while you were speaking and singing, God told me 10 things about your life. But number 5 was, don't worry about your son. God's hand of protection is on his life. I wasn't even married then. And so I had that tucked in my Bible. So I drove down to the beach. Barry went home. We were both really sad. But I remember talking to this tiny little one and saying, I don't know if you heard that, but I want you to know I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to fight for every breath that God has ordained for you to take. And at 38 weeks of pregnancy, I had to go in every month for monitoring. She called and said, the day that your results came back, the results of another 40-year-old patient came back. And your results went in her chart. And her results went in your chart. And there's never been anything wrong with your son. And even as I was about to drop to my knees in tears, I thought, there's another woman getting a very different call. And I asked if I was allowed to know who she was, and she said no. But I prayed for every year on my son's birthday. He'll turn 23 in December. I find a quiet place, and I go and I pray for that mother. But I believe in the sovereignty of God. I wonder if I was allowed to carry her burden for her. I'll never know that, but yeah. And now I look at my son. He loves God. He loves people. And he actually has, in Hebrew, written over his heart in a tattoo, God's hand of protection.
And your son's name is Christian.
Yes, it is.
And he's in college where?
He's at Texas A&M. Whoop! Gig him.
Now, Josh, you travel how many times out of the year? You were talking backstage.
This year I'm traveling 330 days.
330 days for the kingdom. Can you all give him a hand for that?
Or a bed.
Now, here's what I would like to know.
Maybe you better pray for me than clap.
Well, here's what I'd like to know. If we took your 330 days, how many days are you traveling?
I measure by miles. 160,000 domestic miles.
And Sheila, do you know yours?
I'm over 3 million miles.
Can you believe
But that's
the
not just
kingdom?
for this year.
The kingdom work that's going on this stage.
Wait, this year you're over 3 million?
No, that's over several years. No, this year it's 200,000 because I've got a lot of international trips.
I think it's awesome, don't you all, to think what they're doing for the kingdom of God. The sacrifice that you all make to do God's work is phenomenal. Josh, I want to go to you. I know that you are passionate about talking about your son. Tell us about your son.
Apparently not.
Oh, he is. Trust me.
I was waiting what was coming next.
Tell us what your son's doing now. Besides teaching, we know he's a professor, but you were sharing with me what Sean's doing.
I have 3 daughters and a son, and everybody talks to me about my son because he's getting so well known around the world. But he's got 3 sisters that'll stand tall right with him. Incredible 3 sisters. But Sean teaches at Dallas Seminary, or Talbot Seminary, Biola College, Capo Valley Christian School, because he always want one foot in the high school world. And he travels and lectures and writes all over the world. I said to him one day, son, how in the world do you do it? He said, Dad, how do you do it? But, and
he is awesome. I told Josh earlier, I said, your son is awesome.
Now, we talked about how much you travel. Between you 3, I wonder how many books we have. How many books, Sheila, have you written?
Some of mine are children, but 53.
53 books.
I'm only 43.
Only 43.
But they're big
okay.
No, not all of them. No, he's going to blow your mind, I'm sure. What?
152.
152. Can someone do the math on that? Because I can't, really quickly do the math. But
See, Sheila's done 50. I'm 3 times as old as she is. So
Oh, I think not.
Be my age, she'll have 150 out.
And Lee, we know your first book came about because of a plate of chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Tell them the story about the chocolate chip cookies.
Well, I was an atheist. My wife was agnostic. We moved into a condo in Chicago, and the neighbor was a Christian. And a sweet woman named Linda, she was a nurse, and she brought over a plate of chocolate chip cookies. And that simple gesture of saying, hey, welcome to the building. My name's Linda. Why don't we get together, have a cup of tea? Turned out she had a daughter the same age our daughter. They became best friends, and it was Linda that ended up leading Leslie to faith. And then it was Leslie's influence that ended up leading me to faith. So that's simple. We think, gosh, what can I do to reach out to someone? Bring them a plate of cookies. I mean, it's really as simple as that.
Chocolate
sometimes.
chip.
Chocolate chip, definitely.
Well,
yeah. None of that peanut butter
was,
stuff.
Jason Crabb would say snickerdoodle because we had snickerdoodle cookies in the back hospitality room, and I think he ate like 10 of them. And
Yeah, there were none left.
There wasn't.
I didn't see any cookies.
No.
He ate them all.
Oh, that's so
Seriously.
fine.
So my hospitality lady brings in all these I have some bug is flying around in my face right now. Seriously. And my hospitality lady brings in a whole large container of snickerdoodle cookies, and you all were going to get some today, but they're all gone as of last night because Jason, don't tell him, he's probably not even listening to us, but he ate most of the snickerdoodle. Sorry you all didn't get
He
any.
stuffed his pockets full, and I saw him when he walked out. Dogs were barking at him.
And now, Lee, I find this interesting back on this cookie topic because you said something to me when I interviewed you for TV that I found very interesting, that people wouldn't know what you thought and what you said to me when your wife was converted and she told you that. What did you say that you thought when she got converted to
You
Christianity?
mean when she told me she became a Christian?
When she told you
Yeah.
she became a Christian, what did you think?
First word went through my mind was divorce.
Divorce.
Yeah, I was going to
You
walk
thought you would
out.
divorce her. You told
Yeah.
me at the time you thought, here's a Jesus freak, and
Yeah,
I want
thought she was
nothing to do with it.
I thought she turned into some sexually repressed prude. It was, some holier than thou, holy roller or something. I didn't know. All I knew was this wasn't part of the deal. This was not part of our arrangement. And I thought, in fact, what I did, this is really terrible.
Got a divorce lawyer.
Almost. But she had just planted a beautiful garden And I was so mad after she told me she became a Christian. I went out and I had to mow the lawn, and I mowed down the garden.
Oh, my goodness.
This little
Can
passive
you believe
aggression.
Lee Strobel would do that?
But, you know, and it was really my effort to kind of liberate her from this cult that led to my 2-year investigation of the historical evidence for the resurrection that really convinced me, wait a minute, maybe there is something to this, and ended up coming to faith.
And at the time, where were you working?
Chicago Tribune. I was a legal editor.
Now, is it true that you graduated from Mizzou?
Yes.
Mizzou.
Yeah.
Yes.
The best journalism school in the world. The first journalism school, too. It was the original journalism school. I graduated in 1974, went to the Chicago Tribune, then I went off on a Ford Foundation fellowship to Yale Law School and got my master's degree there. And really used my journalism training and legal training to do what Josh did when he was a skeptic, to investigate. Does this make sense? Is it true? Is this wishful thinking, make-believe, legend, mythology, or is this really based on a solid foundation of historical truth? And when you pursue that evidence, golly, you're just shocked at how much there is.
There's overwhelming evidence.
You know, when I was in law school, one of my heroes was a guy named Sir Lionel Luckhoo. Sir Lionel was in the Guinness Book of World Records as the most successful lawyer who ever lived. He, get this, as a defense attorney, won 348 murder trials in a row, either before the jury or on appeal. Wow. So he's in the Guinness Book of World Records. Nobody had ever done that. He was knighted twice by Queen Elizabeth, became a member of the highest Supreme Court of his land, and he was a skeptic about the resurrection. But he did what Josh and I and others have done, took his analytical ability, analyzed the evidence for the resurrection, and here's what he concluded. Quote, he said, I say unequivocally that the evidence for the resurrection of Jesus Christ is so overwhelming that it compels acceptance by proof, which leaves absolutely no room for doubt. Wow. That from the greatest lawyer who ever lived, a guy who knows how to find loopholes and a guy who knows what real evidence is. So you're right. I mean, the evidence is there for anybody willing to take the time to look for it.
That's amazing. In each one of you, in all these books you've written, do you have a favorite book that you've written?
Just think, I said there's over 250 books represented here.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
No wonder
it's
we're
amazing.
so tired.
Yeah, I'm not tired. Jeez, you young people just don't know how to do it.
That's true. That's amazing.
I just finished a book which doesn't come out till next year, but it's called Praying Women, How to Pray When You Don't Know What to Say. Because I look at our culture, I look at our nation, I look at the anger, I look at the polarization, but then I think, what would happen if God's daughters got down on their knees? Because when God's daughters get down on their knees, the battle's not over, it's just begun. Yeah. So that's one of the things I'm most excited about, encouraging my sisters in Christ to pray.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Do you all have a favorite book?
For me, it's always the one I just did because you know, it's so fresh. I just did a book called The Case for Miracles.
It's brilliant.
Oh, thank you. Because I came to faith because of the miracle of the resurrection and the historical evidence that convinced me it's true. But then I was still kind of a skeptic about, is God still doing miracles? And so I spent 2 years investigating the supernatural and wrote that book based on and concluded, yes, he is still in the miracle business. There is good evidence that God is still doing miraculous interventions.
Amen.
I could have just asked Sheila, and she would have told me. It would have saved me 2 years.
Josh, what about you? Do you have a favorite out of the 150?
Yeah, it'd easily be The Secret of Loving. I wrote it 3 times. I wrote it on a plane. It was the first book I ever dictated. I got home, 2 o'clock in the morning. I sat in bed and screamed. Dottie panicked, what's wrong? I said, I left all the cassettes in the seat next to me.
Oh, no.
No.
So then I had a railroad caboose as my guest house and where I wrote. And so I went out there, wrote it all over again, left it there, and I had a cubicle with the 3 windows open. A huge storm hit that night. And you couldn't read a tenth of that book. So I sat down, wrote it a 3rd time, and I guess the first 2 times, either it was so good Satan didn't want it, or so bad God didn't want it. But The Secret of Loving probably helped me more, that and the talk that I gave this morning, to build the marriage I have and a relationship with my children. And to me, that's so important in my life. And so I'd say the secret of loving because I learned so much from. Now it's called 10 Commitments of Love.
I have a question. You have a caboose?
That's
I
what
did.
I
I
just
sold-
heard
yeah.
too. I was going to ask that. Did you say
yeah.
caboose?
What?
Oh, a red caboose had it mounted
Come
on railroad
on.
tracks with stop signs, everything. And
Seriously?
there, people used to call up, "Can I bring my son out and stay overnight at your caboose?" And
That's
yeah,
unbelievable. I love that. That's
I
great.
saw it, bought it for $3,000, moved it in, redid it, and turned it into my study. Put 2 beds up. In
How
the
do you
cupola
move a
above.
caboose?
Very carefully.
Yeah. Wow.
So Josh
That's
uses
awesome.
a caboose. Can you all top that? Where do you write?
Oh, man, I just have a little office next to my bedroom. That's where I write.
Sheila, where do you write? On the run?
I write on planes, coffee
what I
shops, just
thought.
wherever I happen to be.
I've got new respect for you. That is awesome. A caboose. My grandkids would love that.
I also own a Mini Cooper convertible. No.
Seriously? That's awesome.
Sheila, how did you get to the U.S. and how did you begin in ministry?
I came to, after I graduated from seminary in London, I worked with the BBC. That's one of our main television networks, and we'd never had any Christian programs at all. Apart from, that's wrong. There was a show on Sunday called Songs of Praise, which, would come from a little church with 4 people, and, it was just dire. It was just absolutely dire. But this BBC producer approached and said, we would like to do one program on contemporary Christian music. Would you be interested in hosting it? So I said yes, so I invited a bunch of my friends, and I think they just saw it as a substitute one Sunday night for Songs of Praise because they couldn't find any more churches with 4 people left in them. And for some reason, they got so much feedback from people saying, we want more of this. So I ended up hosting this primetime show on BBC for 3 years. And then someone in America from an American record company, Sparrow Records, saw it and invited me to tour with one of their artists, a guy called Phil Keaggy. I don't know if you remember Phil Keaggy. Just
Everybody remembers.
with 9.5 fingers. Yes, he lost one in a well when the lid came down. But he still plays better with 9.5 than anyone else. And then I had worked quite a bit with Billy Graham in the United Kingdom, and so I was working with him as well in America and Canada. And it was while I was in Canada that Pat Robertson saw me on a program and invited me to co-host the 700 Club for 5 years. But basically, I came on a plane. Sorry, that was
You
cheap.
got me on that one.
Cheap.
And then you were doing what after that? Because that's when I saw you. I was younger. 20 years you did Women of Faith.
Yeah, I was, after I shared last night, no, thanks, guys. I shared last night that I spent a month in a psychiatric hospital, really reevaluating everything about life and about God and about who I was in Him. And Pat Robertson was really kind to me. He said, look, I know you don't want to go back on the air. Would you like to maybe work at Regent University? And I said, no, I want to go back to seminary because I spent my undergrad years trying to think of everything I could do to make God happy. And I wanted to go back and learn everything that Christ had already done. And while I was there, I got a guy called Steve Arterburn called me and said, we've put together this little conference with women, Barbara Johnson, Lucy Swindoll, and a few others. Would you be interested in joining as a speaker? And I said, this was my actual honest answer, I would rather stick my hand in a blender. I had never spoken in my life before. I was a contemporary Christian artist, and I worked in TV. The thought of standing up in front of women with a microphone terrified me, so I said no. But he kept persisting. And then he said, would you at least meet the other speakers? And when I met them, and Barbara Johnson talked about what it's like to bury your youngest son, sent home from Vietnam in a body bag, who'd laid face down in a rice paddy for 3 days, so he was unrecognizable even to his mother. And Patsy Claremont talked about being agoraphobic, smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day. And I thought, I actually fit in here. Because the thing that was clear was Christ was the hero of every story. So I became part of that team, and for the next 20 years, we traveled as a team with Women of Faith. 20 years, 30 weekends a year. Nowhere near your schedule, though.
But just think, a man started that.
I know, and we're
Oh, boy,
very
here we
grateful.
go.
All the
Well,
women.
no, I'm just saying, the wisdom he had.
Yeah, you're right.
And from his experience with the life clinics that he ran.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you told me that your son traveled with you. How old was Christian when you started with Women of Faith?
He was 6 weeks old, and that
6
was
weeks
why
old.
I said no too, because I thought, I can hardly make it across the kitchen, never mind across the airport. But we just took him everywhere we went for the first 8 years of his life. Home for Christian was wherever we were. And so it was funny because he thought that was a normal life. We would be in an arena with 20,000 women and had him sitting under my seat. And Stephen Curtis Chapman would call to him and say, "Hey, Christian, buddy, what song do you want now?" And he would say, "The one about the great adventure." He just thought that was normal. So. But then he joined a soccer team at school, and he stayed home with his dad.
Isn't this amazing to hear all these stories? This concludes the interview, you all. We're going to hear from Sheila Walsh next. But thank you so much for sharing your life. Anything else you want to share with the group that's listening before
Can I say one thing? When I did a thing on Instagram saying I was going to be here, and I cannot tell you on Facebook and Instagram how many women said, "Will you tell Josh McDowell and Lee Strobel thank you for the impact they've had on my marriage, on my family, on my children?" That I just want to be a voice from them saying thank you for years of faithful service.
And same for you, Sheila. All of you, are impacting all of these people's lives around the country, around the world. We're just so grateful. I know it's a sacrifice, and wow, we just honor you.
We're glad to be here.
We're going on an adventure, and I want you to come with me. We're going to Israel. It's going to be an incredible adventure, and you don't want to miss it. It's going to be a spiritual, historical trip. Some of the places we're going to be visiting are the Via della Rosa, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the Wailing Wall, the Sea of Galilee, the Dead Sea, Megiddo. We're going to go to the Church of the Beatitudes at the Mount of Olives where Jesus spoke. We're going to participate in a baptism service. We're going to bake traditional Jewish cookies, and we're going to journey all over the Holy Land. I'm telling you, you don't want to miss it. We want you to come with us. Come and join us. It's September the 2nd. You can go to my website and get more information. Go to drmarla.org. Come with us. It's going to be the time of our life. We're going to see the places Jesus walked, the places Paul preached, where the New Testament church started. It's going to be amazing, and I want you to come with us. We're going to film some messages, have a great time. We're going to go deep spiritually, and it's going to be awesome. Go to my website at drmarla.org and get signed up today.